So in this segment, we're going to be talking about Kwasi Kwarteng constantly lying on the Sophie Ridge show, and I'm going to offer some criticism for Sophie Ridge just off the bat, which is you do a decent job, but you need to have Article 16 at hand to explain why what Kwasi Kwarteng is saying is lies. That's what people really need to do when you interview these people. Have it out and make sure you know exactly what you're talking about, because Kwarteng here argues that he did read part of the protocol, he cites part of it, but he doesn't actually give the full context, which is not surprising for Tories, really. So there's two clips here that I want to go through.
Fixed, in their view, and various cabinet ministers, including Liz Truss, including Dominic Raab on this programme, have been very clear that they don't think the protocol is currently working. Does that mean that the UK government is prepared to unilaterally scrap parts of that protocol, even without EU agreement?
Absolutely right. I mean, throughout this whole debate, even before the protocol and the treaty was conceived, we've had a number of people in this country whose presumption has been that the British government is always wrong and that the EU is always right.
Now, for the most part, the EU is normally right when it comes to stuff around the protocol and Brexit stuff. One of the major things I disagree with is the way that you've dealt with Horizon, but that'll be a different video for another time. So, yeah.
And that's clearly too simplistic. We've tried to enter into good faith. We've tried to negotiate, we've drawn the treaty, but we've always said, even Article 16 of the protocol itself says that it can be abrogated unilaterally.
So what he did is he said he read it right in one of the clips, and he literally read 3 lines of it, which says that the United Kingdom or the Union may take unilateral action to appropriate safeguards, but the safeguards shall be restricted to their scope and duration. So if you scrap checks on goods going from GB to Northern Ireland, it doesn't really adhere to the scope bit or the duration bit. So again, not really what Article 16 does. If a safeguard measure is to be taken, there are other things that need to be done as well. The Joint Committee needs 1 month's notice, and it will immediately enter into consultations in the Joint Committee. So it will be between Liz Truss and Sefcovic. The UK cannot take safeguarding measures until 1 month has elapsed, blah, 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 except when there's exceptional circumstances, which the UK can try and argue that Stormont being closed is exceptional, but again, it's up to the EU to accept that. Exceptional circumstances, and that's only when with prior examination. So if it goes through the committee already, if they've been negotiating it for over a month, for example, I mean, you can try and argue exceptional circumstances with Stormont, but I don't know how well that would go. The Union or the United Kingdom, as the case may be, shall without delay notify the measures taken to the Joint Committee and shall provide all relevant information. The problem is the way, if it's repealed via UK law, it won't go through the Joint Committee at all, which won't even be really what Article 16 is envisioned to do at all. So Kwarteng just blatantly lying here. And again, I would just ask for journalists who, if you're going to question ministers around this, and again, I stumbled a fair bit there, but I got through that, is read the protocol, understand Article 16, and you can challenge them properly and do your jobs far better than you are now. You know, that's my only criticism here, or my main criticism.
If it's shown not to be working, and clearly, if political stability is our number one priority, and people are saying that they won't go into power sharing if it isn't changed, we have to consider very carefully how we can change it.
That would break international law, though, wouldn't it?
Well, I'm unclear as to this, because clearly Article 16 is part of the protocol itself, and when you read, I did actually take care to read it again just before the programme, it says quite clearly that there's a scope to change it unilaterally. Unilaterally means that we can do that ourselves without having to reach agreement with the EU, and that's in the treaty. The Article 16 is part of the protocol.
Yeah, but you just completely misconstruing it. Like, you have no idea what it actually means. You've read 3 lines of it, son. 3 lines.
Whatever happens, though, there will be a response from the EU if the UK did decide to go down this route. It could mean a trade war, and let's be clear about what that means. That means tariffs. That means things getting more expensive for people in the middle of a cost of living crisis.
Well, let's see what happens. I think we're getting ahead of ourselves.
We're really not getting ahead of ourselves.
That's what the EU have said.
And also, I mean, any tariff situation they'd have to go through arbitrators. It's not something.
It won't have to go through arbitrators. They can just scrap the trade and cooperation agreement. It won't go through arbitrators if they scrap it like that.
I think that they can just do willy-nilly, arbitrarily, immediately. They have to go through arbitrators.
It's not true.
Let's rewind a bit. We got into a lot of problems because we simply ruled out the ability to walk away. Article 6.
Well, it was Parliament that made that law. It was the bill. It was the I can't remember their names, but it was Parliament that came up with that law. So Parliament was elected by the people.
Seen as enshrined. There's a reason for it. It does allow people to act unilaterally.
But you haven't read what the rest of the constraints around it. You know, it's like if you murder someone, say, no, I was acting in self-defense. The law allows self-defense, right? That's why I put 6 holes in the guy. No, like, it didn't make sense. And
we've got ultimately to be prepared to invoke it.
So yeah, it's rubbish from here. And this is another bit I wanted to talk about, which is Sophie Ridge has posted this on her Twitter page, which is about when Boris Johnson said there'll be no checks in the Irish Sea and effectively lied to her face about it. And she calls out Kwasi Kwarteng over it, which she does a good job of this.
You told businesses in Northern Ireland that they would face no forms, no checks, no barriers of any kind under your Brexit deal. And you also went on to say that if anyone asked them to fill out a form, they should phone you up personally and you'll direct them to throw that form in the bin. Well, how come then that this government document that was leaked this week says that that's not true, that there will be checks and forms?
Which we know that there will be checks and forms. He wasn't telling the truth.
Yes, I am. And look at what we say in our manifesto. Look what we're going to deliver. The deal, it allows us coming...
Own impact assessment.
So it's enough of that. We don't need to hash over that bit.
So pretty clear there. Absolutely no checks. And he said it numerous times.
Yeah.
Did he not understand the deal? Or was he lying to me?
No. He fully understood the deal. But of course...
I wouldn't accept that as the truth, because we already know Kwasi Kwarteng can't. Apparently, he can't read properly because he's missed out so many parts of the protocol. Maybe his memory capacity just doesn't exist because he's got to remember all the lies to tell.
Like in anything, you have to see what the actual practice was when it happened.
Nobody else.
So you're going to be like, oh yeah, he thought there was going to be checks, but then once the protocol was implemented and there were checks, you just got to wait and see what happens. Like we didn't know there was going to be checks, and then once there were checks, I guess it did happen. It doesn't make sense. You see what I mean?
Did though, because the point I make in that interview is that the government's impact assessment, the Brexit secretary, the leaked documents, all of those were saying, yeah, there are going to be checks. He was on his own saying there wouldn't be.
I think the Prime Minister was right to say that we thought it would be a much smoother process.
That's not what he was saying. He wasn't.
It would be a much smoother process. He's just telling lies here. He's lying to her face.
Saying there would be light touch checks. He was saying there would be absolutely no checks, and that was wrong, wasn't it?
Well, what's happened now is I think the EU have been unreasonable, frankly.
It's not about unreasonable, it's just lying, because, he said there would be no checks, not light touch checks, not the odd bit of paperwork here and there. He said throw it in the bin. He said, send it to him, he'll throw it in the bin, etc. So the simple fact is he did lie, and Kwarteng's doing his best to squirm out of it, blaming the EU for it.
I was just reading a report that they won't use an IT system.
That's a load of nonsense. Government IT systems suck. We know that, especially under the Tories. They've been rubbish for over a decade now. So this argument about the IT systems is a load of hogwash, really. When the EU said, we can lower the checks, but we want access to live data about what's going between, I think it was GB and NI and Northern Ireland and Ireland, the UK government said no. So suddenly now these IT systems are working and operational. What a load of nonsense.
Because it breaks some of their sort of legalist way of thinking.
What he's talking about is data protection laws, which, again, is a load of rubbish.
Won't show much flexibility, and that's why we're in the position we're in. The protocol isn't working, and we have to be prepared, and it's an urgent problem, and we have to be prepared.
He's just making this up as he goes along. You can tell by the way his eyebrows are moving and stuff. He's like, yeah, it's not working, so we have to be prepared to do anything, and I did not prepare for this presentation.
To invoke Article 16.
We're in the position we're in because the deal that Boris Johnson signed and negotiated, it was inevitable there was going to be checks on the Irish Sea. So that's why.
I don't think it was inevitable that the EU would be as intransigent or as they have been.
That's not strictly true, because they're not even the goods checks aren't even that aggressive. Like, they could do a lot more checks and things like that. So he's argued that the EU have been far more intransigent, that they've done more checks than they've had to. But the simple fact is that's not what Boris Johnson said would happen back in that interview she cited earlier on. So again, he's trying to weasel his way out of this.
And it wasn't inevitable that the people of Northern Ireland would respond in the way they did.
It was inevitable, though, because the DUP hated the protocol. You didn't get the cross-community consent that you're arguing you need now for the protocol. So, of course the DUP were going to do this. The DUP hated the protocol. especially once they realise you lied to them about it. But this guy absolutely face palming. It's embarrassing. It's honestly embarrassing that he's come up with these answers on live TV, national TV. He's done this, made these mistakes, and the only major criticism I have of Sophie Ridge is please have the protocol ready at hand if you're going to interview people about it, so then you can say you're lying, because we can see he's lying. It doesn't unilaterally just let you scrap the protocol. It lets you make certain changes around certain goods, but again, it's got to go through the joint committee, and the UK haven't done that. It's not gone through the joint committee, and if the UK is going to trigger Article 16, they need to give 1 month's notice first, unless they've already gone through massive consultations around it. And you can get the exceptional circumstances bit. They don't understand Article 16. I'm not saying I've got the greatest analysis of it. Evidently I don't on most things, but I think I understand it better than a Tory government minister, or at least how he portrays his understanding of it. But anyways, look, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, support the channel on Patreon if you can, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.